The story begins with under the cloak of night, muddy water churns around the waist of a young noblewoman named Layla as she wades through a dark swamp. A disembodied voice chastises her, noting that the prestigious entrance ceremony takes place tomorrow, yet she stands knee-deep in filth, courting trouble. The spirit scolds her, insisting she should have remained quietly within the safety of her mansion. Ignoring the reprimand, Layla plunges her hands into the water, determined and stubborn, while the spirit questions the whereabouts of her servants. She struggles against the weight of the sludge, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She explains her desperation. She seeks the moonflower, a rare botanical specimen that blooms only once a month under the cover of darkness. Tonight represents her solitary chance to secure it. The spirit laments that it did not forge a contract merely to assist in such menial labor, but Layla dismisses the complaint. Suddenly, the silence of the forest shatters as a stranger enters the clearing. A young man with golden blonde hair and piercing sapphire eyes stands amidst the trees, his stunning beauty marking him as a member of the royal family. He is the crown prince, the future ruler of the kingdom, and the main hero of the otome game that dictates Layla's reality. He stares at her, witnessing her in a compromised, unkempt state. Acting on instinct, Layla scrambles onto the back of a massive, dark wolf, commanding the beast to flee. As the wolf tears through the water, creating a spray of droplets, Layla shouts back at the prince, ordering him to forget he ever saw her. She identifies herself in her mind as the villainous Layla Vivienne, his future fiancée, and resolves to vanish from his memory. However, the prince does not turn away. Instead, he reaches out toward her retreating figure, entranced by the mystery and declaring a desire to know more about her. The narrative shifts back 8 years to a sunlit morning, revealing a small, 8-year-old Layla sitting in a lavish canopy bed. At this moment, memories of a previous life flood her consciousness, colliding with her present reality. She looks around the room, realizing she has reincarnated into the world of an otome game titled Reflected Spirits, the only game she played in her past life. She identifies herself as Layla Vivienne, the eldest daughter of a count. The game's narrative follows a classic structure where a commoner heroine awakens rare magical powers, enrolls in a magic academy, and bonds with 5 romanceable characters. Layla's role in this story is that of the villainess, the crown prince's fiancée and the heroine's rival. Layla rushes to a mirror, examining her reflection. She sees a child with silky silver hair like moonlight and clear, thoughtful amethyst eyes. She touches her face, admitting that she is cute and bears no resemblance to a wicked villainess. She recalls that the original character of Layla never bullied the heroine and was actually a popular character among fans. The reason she despised the game in her past life was precisely because of the cruel treatment the character Layla received. The script dictates that someone will frame Layla for a crime to remove her from the prince's path. Because of the heroine's influence, Layla's engagement to the crown prince will break. The prince and the heroine, assuaging their guilt, will frame the narrative as a necessary sacrifice for a happy ending, while Layla descends into madness and rots in prison for a crime she did not commit. Staring into the mirror, the young Layla trembles, asking her reflection if she is destined to die again. Her introspection interrupts as the door opens, and a handsome young man enters. This is Melvin Vivienne, her 15-year-old brother and the eldest son of the count's family. He smiles, amused by the sight of Layla staring so intently at herself, joking that seeing her in the mirror and in person provides twice the cuteness. He wonders aloud how he would care for 2 Laylas if she had a double. Layla recognizes him immediately as an extreme siscon, a brother obsessed with his sister, but also notes that he is exceptionally handsome, highly intelligent, and a capture target within the game. A realization strikes Layla like a bolt of lightning. In the game, the only route where the character Layla avoided a tragic death was the dear brother route. Seeing a path to survival, she throws her arms around Melvin, declaring her love and asking to marry him. Melvin flushes, gently reminding her that siblings cannot marry, though he admits he wishes they could. Undeterred by the legal restrictions, Layla pivots her strategy. She vows that her dream for the future is to help him with his duties and remain by his side forever. She calculates that if she carves her own path and secures an elite education at home, she can avoid the heroine's storyline entirely. She resolves to stay home, avoid the magic academy, and ensure she never becomes engaged to the crown prince. 8 years pass, bringing the timeline to the present. In a formal dining room, the atmosphere grows tense as an older Layla stands before her parents. Her mother, Countess Rachel Vivienne, and her father, Count William Vivienne, listen in shock as Layla firmly refuses to attend the Magic Academy. Her father argues that most noble children with magic attend the school, but Layla remains defiant, rejecting that future. She argues that getting left out and having a dull youth is pointless, and she expresses a distinct distaste for student romantic relationships. Before her parents can protest further, she produces a document, a graduation diploma. She reveals she completed a correspondence course and already possesses the qualifications the academy would provide. Count William stares at the diploma, sweat forming on his brow. Unable to comprehend when his daughter accomplished this feat, he turns his gaze to Melvin, accusing him of being her accomplice. Melvin laughs, unrepentant, praising Layla's genius and revealing that the exam included practical training, which she also passed. William demands to know how she managed practical training without leaving the estate, but Melvin ignores the question. Instead, Melvin outlines a future where he and Layla manage their territory together, living happily in isolation. He expresses his desire to stay by Layla's side, viewing this outcome as natural. Count William slams his hand down, rejecting this isolationist plan. He insists that the purpose of the school is to learn human connections, something a diploma cannot replace. He declares that her certification changes nothing and commands that she must attend the academy. The argument ends in a stalemate, and Layla retreats to the garden. Sitting in a white gazebo, she sips tea, her expression melancholic. She acknowledges that she has handled the bare minimum of socializing, but only at parties devoid of capture targets. She feels the weight of her father's disappointment but cannot voice the true reason for her reclusion. She simply does not want to die. She questions whether she is trapped by the expectation to share the same background as everyone else. As her thoughts drift toward the idea of running away, a presence manifests near the gazebo. A large, mystical wolf with dark fur sits on the grass, watching her. Layla realizes immediately that this is no ordinary animal. The wolf speaks, confirming her suspicion, admitting it has been observing her for a long time. It found amusement in the mismatch between her childish appearance and her mature mind. Layla marvels that the creature is a dark spirit speaking directly into her mind. The wolf reveals it knows she plans to run away from the house. It explains that it enjoys watching humans it likes and proposes joining her on her journey. The spirit expresses a long-held desire to form a contract with a human at least once. Layla hesitates, recalling that in the original game, the villainous Layla never possessed a spirit. The wolf presses for a name, its tail wagging in anticipation. Recognizing that this contract represents a deviation from the game's script, Layla agrees. She gazes into the wolf's glowing golden eyes and decides to name it Luna, likening its eyes to the moon. A warmth envelopes her as the contract completes. Layla returns to the mansion, where she finds Melvin waiting for her. He looks relieved, his composure shaken. He admits that he sensed she was on the verge of running away from home and panicked. He feared that she had gained something, the spirit, that would push her to leave him. Melvin then reveals the extent of his obsession. He has researched her every like, dislike, thought, and tendency. He claims there is nothing about her he cannot figure out, asserting that he can tell what she is thinking even if she tries to hide it. Layla recoils, calling him scary, but Melvin persists, stating he must fully understand everything about her. He declares he will absolutely not allow her to flee. The tension breaks as Countess Rachel approaches them in the garden. She announces that she has presented a compromise to Count William. Rachel reveals she had a plan for Layla's education that spanned years, but forcing Layla into the academy against her will would only lead to bad results for everyone. She acknowledges that attending the academy as a regular student is unbearable for Layla, while total isolation is unacceptable to William. Rachel proposes a middle ground where both sides make concessions. The narrative concludes with Layla standing before the towering gates of the academy. She wears a new uniform and glasses, her expression serious. Rachel's voiceover notes that while the original plan failed and things did not go exactly as envisioned, she has not given up. Layla accepts her new reality. Starting today, she will attend the academy, armed with her correspondence diploma, her obsessive brother's support, and a powerful dark spirit named Luna, ready to face a destiny she has fought for 8 years to avoid. Layla stands before the towering iron gates of the academy, clutching a large suitcase with both hands, her expression tightening as she acknowledges that the dreaded time has finally arrived. The massive castle-like structure looms in the background, signaling the start of episode 2. Instead of joining the stream of students entering through the main gate, she veers toward a side path, prompting her companion, a large black wolf spirit named Luna, to remark that she is different from the others. Layla explains that she is heading for the back entrance reserved for staff. When Luna questions why she avoids the main entrance despite attending the academy, Layla admits that the transition from being a shut-in to suddenly living in a dormitory has her nerves on edge. Walking along the cobblestone path, Layla reassures herself that she will be fine because Luna is by her side. Her mind drifts to her brother, Melvin, recalling how he clung to her desperately before she left, declaring that he could not stand to be apart from her. As she walks, she privately concludes that putting distance between herself and her obsessive brother is actually a positive development. She arrives at a quiet building where a tall man with long blonde hair and glasses waits for her. This is Theodore Vivian, the Academy medical officer and her uncle. Theodore greets her warmly, noting that she arrived without getting lost. He is a gentle, soft-spoken man who used to play with Layla and Melvin when they were children. However, he is also a formidable mage. Rumors suggest the Academy scouted him for his skills, and he now doubles as a researcher in dark magic. His attention shifts immediately to the large black wolf beside Layla. He peers at Luna, noting the spirit's fashionable presence. To Layla's shock, Luna speaks up, observing that this man is gifted enough to see through her identity as a dark spirit. Theodore is ecstatic that the wolf can speak, while Luna explains that a mage with the same attribute can hear a spirit's voice even without a contract. Overwhelmed by intellectual curiosity, Theodore clasps his hands together, wondering if having a niece contracted to a dark spirit is an act of divine will. He begs Layla to stay by his side forever so he can research this phenomenon. Luna dryly observes that Layla seems surrounded exclusively by weird men. Ignoring her uncle's eccentricity, Layla asks for the infirmary, noting internally that his obsession with research is likely why he remains single at nearly 30. Inside the infirmary, Theodore offers to hire more medical staff to help her, but Layla rejects the offer instantly. She surveys the room, surprised to find it cleaner than expected, having anticipated an avalanche of junk. Theodore hands her a lab coat, admitting that as an introvert who dislikes people, he figured out how to manage the facility alone. Layla dons the coat, and Luna compliments her, saying it suits her. Layla reflects on her mother's plan. She will assist her uncle as family. The condition for this arrangement is that she continues the job until her classmates graduate. She will not attend as a student but as a medical assistant, taking exams behind the scenes to earn her official graduation credits. Layla's composure cracks as a memory from the previous night intrudes. She recalls running into Felix Orcott, the Crown Prince. Panic sets in as she realizes she met him while swimming in a lake at midnight, a scenario that never existed in the game. In the flashback, Felix stares at her, entranced. Luna, exhibiting no tact, comments that Felix is showing typical male instincts and seems to have decided Layla is his mate due to love at first sight. Layla, mortified, begs Luna to stop describing it so vividly. Luna eventually rescues her using teleportation magic. Back in the present, Layla laments that her scheme to gather favor by collecting the moonflower for her uncle backfired spectacularly. She puts on a pair of special glasses designed for disguises, determined to ensure Felix does not recognize her as the suspicious person from the lake. She knows Felix is entering the academy today. Theodore prepares to leave for the ceremony, entrusting the infirmary to her. Moments after he leaves, the doorknob turns. Panic seizes Layla, and she dives behind a counter to hide, with Luna following suit. The door opens to reveal Prince Felix himself. He calls out, asking for a medical officer. He carries a young girl in his arms, Lily Jewelm, the game's protagonist. Felix explains that she is injured. Layla immediately recognizes this as the game's prologue event. Lily, a commoner awakened to light magic and adopted by a baron, was harassed by a noble lady and pushed to the ground. In the script, Felix appears like destiny to carry her to the infirmary. Realizing the scenario has already begun and she forgot about this specific treatment event, Layla steels herself and emerges from hiding. Felix asks if she is a student, noting she looks the same age as them. Layla introduces herself as Layla Vivian, the assistant medical officer at Soleil Levant Magic Academy. She explains that although she is their age, she holds a medical license and has already earned her graduation qualifications. Felix narrows his eyes, sensing he has seen her somewhere before. He addresses her as Lady Layla Vivian of the Count family, impressed that she used the grade skipping system. Layla deflects, claiming she rarely goes out, so his familiarity must be his imagination. Luna, watching from the shadows, praises the genius illusion effect of the glasses. Felix notices the wolf hiding in the corner and asks about that person, but his attention quickly returns to Lily. Lily apologizes, explaining she twisted her ankle. Layla examines the injury, noting it isn't very swollen. She applies a magic-infused healing patch to fade the pain quickly. Lily marvels at her skill. Felix, satisfied with the treatment, suggests they head back to the entrance ceremony before it starts. As they leave, Layla stands alone, wondering if she just ruined the event by intervening so efficiently. Layla reflects on the effort it took to reach this point. She realized her mother's proposal was the only way to avoid the death ending while respecting her own hatred of social interaction. To qualify, she had to obtain a medical support license and a certificate in herb mixing within a single year. She studied non-stop, working harder than she ever did for university exams in her past life. A flashback reveals her handing the rare moonflower in a jar to Theodore. He asks if it is really okay for him to have something so rare. Layla smiles, saying she went through a lot to pick it. The memory connects to the lake incident. Luna scolds Layla for wearing a restrictive dress to collect herbs near the water. It was this choice that led to her falling into the lake, creating the disastrous first meeting with the prince. In a world governed by the strict laws of arcana, magic separates into 6 distinct primordial elements. Fire, water, wind, and earth form the common foundation, while the opposing forces of light and dark remain exceptionally scarce resources. This rarity grants light magic a coveted status, particularly for its potent applications in healing. Layla, a young woman of deceptive quietude, commands this formidable light magic, possessing a reservoir of power that marks her as both strong and undeniably special within this hierarchy. The narrative shifts to the hushed interior of a library, where Prince Felix approaches Layla, who sits surrounded by stacks of books. He breaches the distance between them, taking a seat directly opposite her, an action that causes Layla to stiffen with immediate vigilance. Felix seeks confirmation that they share the same age, to which Layla stammers a hesitant affirmation, her composure rattling under his scrutiny. Internally, she grapples with the absurdity of the situation, questioning why a central figure like the prince would descend to interact with an anomaly like her, disrupting the expected flow of events. Felix leans in, observing that his interest stems from the unusual nature of her employment at such a young age. He notes that while most noble daughters occupy their time securing marriage partners, Layla treads a solitary path of labor. Layla defends her position, citing personal reasons, while Felix muses on the rarity of students who skip grades or choose remote learning, emphasizing how such choices inadvertently compel one to stand out. He deduces that she avoids social gatherings to minimize her presence, yet this very absence amplifies his curiosity. A flash of memory crosses Felix's expression as he admits that Layla reminds him of someone specific, fueling his intrigue. Layla, terrified by this unwanted attention, questions her suitability as a conversation partner for royalty. Felix brushes off her deflection, claiming he trusts his instincts regarding people and finds the library's atmosphere peaceful. He declares his intention to visit her periodically to converse, explicitly stating his goal to befriend those who capture his interest. He laments the difficulty of finding genuine connections in a world where most seek to exploit him for gain. Just as the conversation deepens, Layla reminds him of his duties as the freshman representative, effectively dismissing him. As he departs, admitting his oversight, Layla internally screams her refusal to become involved with him, her desire for anonymity clashing with his persistence. Later, a man in a medical coat, likely her superior, praises Layla for her successful start, suggesting they proceed to the entrance ceremony. Layla follows, her face flushed and anxious, lamenting that her true identity sits on a ticking clock, destined for exposure. She dreads the upcoming ceremony, her nerves fraying at the edges. She watches Felix leave, questioning why they seem to get along, acknowledging that the narrative has already deviated wildly from the game's original path. At the assembly, Felix takes the stage, while Layla formally introduces herself to the student body as Layla Vivienne, the assistant medical officer. She pledges her support to the students' well-being, masking her internal turmoil with a professional veneer. She steels herself, viewing this as the commencement of her new life, determined to navigate the medical field despite the encroaching plot deviations. The scene transitions to the mundane reality of her duties. Layla returns to the office, immediately tasked with retrieving materials from the library. She cynically rebrands herself as an errand runner rather than an assistant, noting her uncle's reclusive tendencies surpass even her own. Utilizing sound magic, she extends her perception to eavesdrop on distant conversations. She intercepts Felix's voice praising her intelligence and beauty to an unseen companion, noting her accelerated education and the complexity of the books she reads. Layla flushes at the praise, finding the contrast between his high opinion and her reality of being bossed around ironically bitter. Suddenly, Felix materializes in the library again, greeting her with a familiarity that startles her. He compliments her speech from the ceremony, and she returns the pleasantry regarding his own address. Layla swiftly attempts to retreat, sensing that the convergence of the game's protagonist and the love interest in this space signals a dangerous event flag. She hurries away, lamenting another run-in with the prince, but he pursues her, stopping her in the aisles. Felix looks visibly distressed, his usual composure fractured. Layla notes he isn't the main love interest but wonders if anyone else can intervene. He pleads for her assistance to hide him, his cheeks dusted with a flush of panic. Layla, recalling the game mechanics, realizes her light magic and the current scenario might still position her as a potential fiancé, a fate she desperately needs to avoid. Despite her reservations, she agrees to test a barrier spell she has been practicing. She instructs Felix to stand behind a sofa. Layla explains the mechanics of her spell, using artificial magic crystals to manipulate air, forming a barrier that distorts light and sound to render the target invisible. She casts the spell, admitting its imperfections, but Felix marvels at its flawlessness as he vanishes from sight. Layla observes that she can still see him, but to the naked eye he is effectively concealed. The library doors burst open, admitting a loud, frantic voice demanding Felix's appearance. The intruder is Harold Dyer, a 17-year-old noble and the second son of a count. Despite his boisterous entry and imposing stature as a knight, Harold is internally characterized as a painfully shy and innocent young man, incapable of maintaining eye contact with women. He freezes upon seeing Layla, apologizing profusely for his intrusion while seeking the prince. Harold collapses onto the very sofa Felix hides behind, oblivious to his liege's presence mere inches away. Layla, maintaining the ruse, serves Harold tea, which she explains is enchanted to relieve fatigue. Harold accepts it gratefully, his demeanor shifting from panic to somber concern. He broaches the subject of a rumor sweeping the academy, that the crown prince has fallen in love at first sight with a girl possessing light magic, specifically Lady Lily. Harold confesses that Felix fled when he attempted to inquire about these rumors. He expresses deep confusion, noting that Felix has never been involved in such scandals before. Harold fears the complications of a royal engagement with a former commoner like Lily, citing the political fallout and necessary background investigations. He admits he panicked and reacted aggressively because he cares for Felix's well-being. Layla, listening intently, realizes the misunderstanding runs deep. She observes Harold's genuine distress and offers reassurance, suggesting that Felix is intelligent and wouldn't act impulsively on a fleeting attraction. She posits that love doesn't typically bloom fully within a single day of meeting. Harold, swayed by her calm logic and stiff expression, which he misinterprets as seriousness rather than tension, begins to relax, his face brightening. He agrees to speak with Felix calmly and departs, thanking Layla for her mediation. Once the coast is clear, Felix emerges from his magical concealment. He is irritated with Harold's overreaction but expresses profound gratitude to Layla for diffusing the situation. Layla jokingly asks if she is a beast tamer, considering how she handled the night. Felix then pivots to the truth behind the rumors. He reveals that the story of love at first sight is partially true, but not regarding Lily. Felix recounts a fateful encounter from 2 days prior. Under the light of the moon, he saw a girl bathing in the lake. He describes her with reverence, standing in her natural form, skin pale and transparent, leaning against a wolf as if shy. She had spoken in a faint voice, asking him not to look at her, before disappearing. Felix confesses that this fleeting vision was his true love at first sight. Layla freezes as she listens to this description. She realizes with dawning horror that the goddess he saw was her, stripped of her disguise, accompanied by her familiar. Felix, unaware that the object of his affection stands before him, explains his strategy. He allowed the rumors about Lily to circulate to create a smokescreen, protecting his mystery girl from scrutiny while he searches for her. He admits he dislikes the constraints of political marriage and wants this one period of freedom during his school years. He apologizes to Layla for implicating the girl of light in his schemes, acknowledging it might cause trouble. Layla, processing this information, realizes that letting the rumors stand actually benefits her by directing attention away from her true identity. She agrees that secrecy requires a diversion. Felix, buoyed by her understanding and the relief of sharing his secret, thanks her warmly. He declares her the only person he can talk to about his first love, unaware of the supreme irony. Felix departs with a lightened heart, leaving Layla in a state of catastrophic embarrassment. She slumps against her desk, her face burning. Her wolf familiar materializes, teasing her mercilessly about taming the prince and asking if his smile made her heart skip a beat. Layla denies being in love, overwhelmed by the realization that the situation has spiraled completely beyond her control. The corridors of the academy buzzed with the hushed, venomous whispers of noble daughters. They huddled in the hallways, their fans obscuring mouths that dripped with disdain as they dissected the latest scandal involving Lord Felix and the commoner girl, Lily. Rumors circulated that the crown prince himself was guarding her, a fact that sat poorly with the aristocratic student body. They scrutinized Lily's behavior, noting how she acted with unforgivable familiarity toward His Highness, despite her lowly status. Yet, resignation mingled with their envy. Lily possessed the rare and coveted light attribute, a divine gift that shielded her from direct social ostracization, even as it painted a target on her back. Far removed from the poisonous court politics of the hallway, Layla sought refuge in her sanctuary. She paused at the door of the medical office, stealing a moment to center herself before entering the fray. Though ostensibly a medical assistant, she knew the reality of her position had shifted. The infirmary, intended as a place of healing and quiet respite, had evolved into a gravitational hub for the academy's most prominent figures. Steeling herself, she slid the door open, announcing that class was imminent, only to find the room already occupied by the very subjects of the school's gossip. Lounging within the infirmary were the realm's high-ranking elite, treating the sterile environment as their private salon. Layla observed them with a practiced, weary eye. It had been some time since she assumed the role of assistant, yet the danger of harboring such high-profile students never truly dissipated. While the infirmary existed for treatment, it had become a habitual hideout. Harold and Prince Felix had made themselves at home, the former even going so far as to transport a massive trunk filled with royal-approved tea supplies into the medical wing days prior. Layla questioned the propriety of their presence, believing a school nurse should be a figure of reliance for the students, not a host for a noble tea party. Their constant attendance was becoming a logistical problem, yet the casual clutter of tea sets and relaxed postures suggested they had no intention of leaving. Layla turned her attention to the actual medical officer, her uncle, who sat slumped at his desk in a state of disheveled exhaustion. He offered a weak, trembling smile, his face gaunt and shadowed by days of neglect. He admitted that the situation was typical, his voice hollow. Layla peered at him with concern, noting the dark circles under his eyes and the unhealthy pallor of his skin. He looked like a man haunting his own laboratory. The man was a genius, a fact Layla could not dispute. He was the architect of the artificial magic stone crystals, a revolutionary invention that had shaken the foundations of the magical world. Prior to his work, magic stones were rare, naturally occurring phenomena. His artificial creation allowed for the mass distribution of crystals capable of converting a user's magic power into different attributes, a discovery that had fundamentally altered society. Yet, despite his monumental achievements and the Academy's desperation to keep him as a researcher, his habits were atrocious. He laughed off her concerns with a creepy, jagged chuckle that sent a shiver down her spine. He had effectively dumped all the practical infirmary duties onto Layla so he could hole up in his lab, immune to reprimands due to his irreplaceable value to the institution. Layla respected his intellect, but as a superior, she found him woefully negligent. Sensing her wavering patience, the uncle shifted tactics, employing bribery to placate his capable assistant. He praised her efficiency, noting how well she handled the master of the office, and complimented her on infusing the medical compresses with magic. His flattery was transparent, culminating in the promise of treats from a renowned patisserie to reward her hard work. Layla, though aware she was being manipulated, found the prospect of high-quality sweets difficult to resist. She sighed, accepting that her daily life was peaceful enough for the time being, even if she was being handled like a child. Layla retreated to the outdoors for a moment of respite, crouching among the flower beds. She reflected on the deviations from the core scenario she knew from her previous life's knowledge. Her own brother, Melvin, had been a potential romance target in the original game story. However, his obsessive sister complex had spiraled out of control, forcing her uncle to intervene and exile him back to their territory. Melvin was supposed to appear as a temporary teacher, but that plotline had been severed, removing him from the romantic board entirely. Yet, as she gazed across the courtyard, she realized the other romance targets were gathering exactly as the script dictated. The game's gravitational pull was strong, correcting the course even without her brother's involvement. From her vantage point, Layla witnessed a scene straight out of the romance novel. Prince Felix stood beneath the dappled sunlight of a tree, engaging Lily in conversation. He asked if she had acclimated to the academy, playing the part of the concerned gentleman. Lily, bathed in a soft, innocent glow, stammered her affirmative. In Layla's eyes, the scene was playing out perfectly, the prince and the heroine growing closer. Lily, with wide, trusting eyes, praised Felix's kindness. Felix, in turn, pledged his support, citing his father's instructions to aid her. The conversation shifted as Lily expressed a desire to visit the town, a simple wish that carried heavy implications. Felix hesitated, his expression tightening as he warned her of the dangers outside the academy walls. Lily simply smiled, declaring her absolute belief in his protection. To an outside observer, it was a moment of blossoming trust. However, the reality within Felix's mind was starkly different. He found the interaction exhausting. He reminded himself that this was a duty, a mandate from the royal family to secure the loyalty of the only light magic user in the country. He viewed Lily not as a romantic interest, but as a political asset that needed to be kept in a good mood. The pressure of factions wanting to bring her into the royal bloodline weighed on him. He felt stifled, unable to decipher the labyrinthine thoughts of nobles, let alone the simplistic, unguarded nature of the commoner before him. When Lily noticed his fatigue and offered to listen to his troubles, Felix felt a flicker of genuine surprise. He questioned what he could possibly say to a stranger, but her offer to simply be a vessel for his stress struck a chord. He decided to feign opening his heart, seeing her enlightened aura, or perhaps just her denseness, as a unique respite. He resolved to invite her on the outing she requested, driven by a mix of calculation and curiosity. Back in the present reality of the infirmary, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Felix and Harold sat on the sofa, looking utterly defeated. Layla worked at the counter, brewing coffee not in a pot, but in a laboratory beaker, a sight that caused the nobleman to recoil in horror. They questioned the safety of the vessel, but Layla calmly assured them she had neutralized any chemical residue, treating the beverage preparation with the precision of a chemistry experiment. She served the coffee alongside fatigue-relieving tea, her demeanor clinical yet accommodating. The boys hesitated, sniffing the concoction paranoia, before finally taking a sip, reassured only after seeing Layla drink from it first. Layla probed them about the previous day's events, knowing from the rumors that they had escorted Lily to town. In the original game, this outing was a pivotal event where the heroine gets kidnapped, and the rescue leads to a deepening of romantic bonds. She asked if anything unusual occurred, expecting to hear a tale of heroic romance. Harold's expression darkened. He recounted the day with the 1,000-yard stare of a war veteran. They had gone to town, and as predicted by the script, Lily had wandered off despite their warnings. She was kidnapped by thugs. Harold and Felix had executed a rescue mission, saving her from danger. But the romantic aftermath was a disaster. Lily had displayed zero trauma or fear. Instead, she had smiled and declared the kidnapping fun, expressing a desire to go again. Layla struggled to reconcile the game's script with this chaotic reality. The event had occurred to move the plot forward, but Lily's reaction broke the immersion entirely. Felix, slumped in his chair, tried to rationalize Lily's behavior, suggesting she simply wasn't used to having escorts and meant no harm. He looked drained, his patience eroded by Lily's utter lack of self-preservation. Layla realized that the healing Lily was supposed to provide Felix had backfired. Instead of being charmed by her innocence, the prince was exhausted by her imprudence. Harold, who was supposed to be happy Lily wasn't afraid of his stern face, just looked traumatized. Layla felt as though she had peeked behind the curtain of a stage play to find the actors miserable and the props falling apart. In an effort to salvage the mood, Layla spoke softly, offering them comfort and validating their exhaustion. She told them they had done well. The effect was instantaneous. Felix and Harold looked at her with wide eyes, the simple, empathetic praise hitting them with the force of a powerful spell. Layla watched invisible affection levels rise above their heads, realizing that her basic human decency was being interpreted as profound consideration by these emotionally starved nobles. To cement the peace, she brought out the calorie bombs, the high-end cakes her uncle had used to bribe her. Just as the atmosphere began to settle into a comfortable quiet, the door burst open. Lily stood there, beaming, obliterating the calm. She announced she had finally found them, seemingly oblivious to the stiffening postures of the men in the room. She breezed past social barriers, asking Layla if they were meeting for the first time, then immediately dismissing the formality by insisting on using first names. Lily's gaze locked onto the cake box. She marveled at the treats, her eyes sparkling with avarice. Without waiting for an invitation, she noted there were 3 pieces of cake, perfect for herself, Felix, and Harold. She completely excluded Layla from the equation, grabbing a fork and diving into the sweets. The room froze. Felix and Harold stared in disbelief at the sheer audacity. Layla, holding a letter she had just received, watched the scene unfold with a mix of amusement and pity. Harold, who Layla realized had a secret sweet tooth, looked devastated as Lily consumed the share that would have been his. He watched her eat, his heart breaking silently over the lost pudding. Lily, with cream on her lip, praised the taste, utterly unaware of the social faux pas she had committed. The boys attempted to gently reprimand her, explaining that she needed to be mindful of boundaries and that the sweets were a gift from Layla's brother. Lily offered a hollow apology, clearly not understanding the gravity of her rudeness. Felix sighed, assuming the role of the tired mother disciplining a wayward child, a far cry from the dashing love interest he was meant to be. Layla turned away from the chaos to focus on the letter in her hands. It was from her brother. The script on the page was jagged and ominous, reading simply, "I'm coming to get you." A chill raced through her. The letter felt less like a correspondence and more like a threat from a ghost. Panic flared in her chest. She spun toward the door where her uncle was hiding, desperate to know if he had authorized this visitor. But before she could get an answer, a massive, shadowy, wolf-like beast crashed into the room, sending debris flying and screams tearing from Lily's throat. The beast loomed over them, its voice booming with the same terrifying promise as the letter. Just like the letter said, "I've come to get you." The infirmary door slid open to reveal a tall, elegant man who instantly closed the distance to Layla, his presence overwhelming the room. Layla stammered, calling him older brother, but her hesitation only invited him closer. He leaned in, planting a kiss on her cheek and whispering that her fear made her incredibly cute. Melvin admitted he had sneaked into the academy solely to see her face, disregarding the rules entirely. As Layla recoiled, accusing him of being creepy, Melvin simply smiled, noting how she scrunched her brows to hold back tears, an expression he declared belonged exclusively to him. His possessive gaze shifted to the floor where the black beast from the previous incident lay, and he asked if this guy was okay. Layla attempted to deflect his suspicion by mentioning a girl was also present, but Melvin's jealousy flared instantly. He demanded to know her relationship with the men frequenting the infirmary, his mind racing with paranoia that His Highness or the knight might fall in love with her. He insisted that her cuteness was too potent to be hidden by mere glasses. Layla tried to reason with him using the game's logic, stating the prince had already fallen for someone else at first sight, but Melvin remained unconvinced. The medical officer, Theodore, interrupted the interrogation from his desk, where he sat bound in chains. He thanked his niece for the rescue, explaining that Melvin had tied him up while he was napping. Theodore scolded Melvin, telling him his behavior was getting out of hand and that his heavy love was clearly intimidating Layla. Melvin faltered for a moment, apologizing, but his contrition quickly twisted into a dark, poetic delusion. He muttered about binding Layla with chains of love and keeping her in a birdcage, concluding that filthy is beautiful in a chilling display of obsession. Just as quickly as the darkness appeared, it vanished, replaced by a cheerful demeanor as Melvin demanded a date around town since he had traveled all the way there. Layla, recalling her own desire to explore the capital, realized she could manipulate his malleability to her advantage. She agreed to the outing, and Melvin, ecstatic, rushed off to change his clothes, declaring he would dress up to match her. From the floor, the black wolf projected his voice into Layla's mind, explaining that he only showed the tip of his nose to avoid detection by dark attribute beings. He promised to watch over his master from the shadows. When Layla asked if her Earth attribute brother could see him, the wolf noted there were always exceptions, citing Theodore as an example. Layla finished changing into a dress, and when she emerged, Melvin went into a frenzy of adoration. He fixated on her socks and the absence of her lab coat, his breathing heavy with excitement. He noted she wasn't wearing her glasses and dragged her out the door before she could protest, though she managed to grab them at the last second. In the royal capital, Melvin's striking appearance drew the attention of passers-by, yet he focused solely on Layla. He clung to her, declaring that photos were no longer enough and he needed his daily dose of her to survive. He steered her toward a jewelry shop popular for engraved accessories, suggesting they buy matching rings, a proposal that mirrored an event from the original game. Panic surged through Layla at the romantic implication, and she quickly improvised, claiming she needed a new feather pen instead. She manipulated him by suggesting that using matching diaries and pens would make her feel closer to him, a lie Melvin accepted with joy. Inside the shop, Melvin purchased a stylish box set containing a mirror and pen, remarking that it felt a bit forbidden. Layla wandered to a display of stuffed animals and sweets, her thoughts drifting to her life at the academy. She considered buying macarons for Harold, knowing his secret love for sweets, and realized with a start that these people had become an integral part of her daily existence. A warm, ticklish feeling spread through her chest, but it was cut short when she bumped into a hooded figure near the exit. The figure turned, his hood falling back to reveal the face of Prince Felix. Without her glasses to disguise her features, Felix stared directly into her eyes, his expression shifting from confusion to recognition. Panic seized Layla as she realized her cover was blown. She turned and bolted down the street, desperate to escape. Felix gave chase, catching her hand in an alleyway to stop her flight. He pulled her close, peering at her unmasked face, and asked why she was running. Before she could invent an excuse, he uttered the name Lady Layla, confirming that he recognized her voice and face, leaving her with nowhere to hide. Meanwhile, in a distant memory, Layla's father and Melvin argued over her future. Melvin had proposed making her Theodore's assistant, a plan the father rejected due to Theodore's reclusive nature. However, Melvin's alternative suggestion, keeping her at the estate to work alongside him, terrified the father even more. They agreed that sending her to the academy was the only viable option to keep her safe from Melvin's suffocating obsession. Under the expansive canvas of the night sky, Prince Felix locks eyes with the young noblewoman, his expression tender yet piercingly certain as he dismantles her disguise with a single utterance of her name, Lady Layla. He seeks confirmation, though his tone suggests he already knows the truth, leaving no room for evasion. He confesses that her voice was the unmistakable key, a sound he favors so fondly that it allowed him to identify her instant, a declaration that sends a shockwave of flustered confusion through her. As her heart throbs painfully in her chest, betraying her composure, she begs him to release her, unable to comprehend what his affection implies or why he would speak of liking her voice. Fear grips her, urging her to flee the intensity of the moment, but his hand firmly grasps her wrist, physically anchoring her to the confrontation. She struggles internally with the guilt of facing him, terrified that her presence and deception are trampling upon Prince Felix's genuine feelings, making it impossible to look him in the eye. He gently lifts her chin, forcing their gazes to meet once more, shattering her attempt to avert her eyes. Panic rises within Layla as she realizes this development deviates entirely from the game's script. She fears that if nothing changes around the heroine, she will be dragged back into the tragic fate dictated by the game. The unpredictability of this unscripted moment leaves her terrified of what development awaits her now. Overwhelmed, tears prick her eyes as she stammers out apologies, but Felix remains undeterred, expressing pure joy at confirming she is the moon goddess he sought. He urges her not to look away, genuinely confused as to why she feels the need to apologize for her identity. His warm, sunshine-like smile radiates despite her deception, a kindness that paradoxically causes her past self, a shadowed, traumatic memory, to resurface like a dark tide. The sheer weight of his affection suffocates her, resurfacing memories of her past self, making her beg him internally to stop looking at her. Memories of a past rejection bleed into the present as she recoils, the silhouette of a schoolgirl overlapping with her noble attire, screaming for him to stop. Felix presses on, recounting their first meeting by the lake and imploring her to acknowledge the mutual connection, asking if she understands his feelings. His voice drops as he asks the dreaded question, does she perhaps like someone else? Desperate to sever the tie, she claims she is unfit to be with His Highness, fabricating a ridiculous lie to create distance. She declares herself a troublesome noble lady, and, with feigned conviction, asserts that she loves her older brother to an obsessive degree. She labels herself a hopeless brother complex girl, insisting that because of her brother, there is no room for anyone else in her heart. Felix pauses, processing her claim that there is no one now other than family. However, Felix leans in, his demeanor shifting from shock to a knowing calm, easily dismantling her defense with a finger raised in silence. He points out that while she is close to her brother, he is not someone she longs for with romantic love. To her, he is just family. He observes that while her lips speak of this brotherly obsession, there is absolutely no passion in her eyes to back it up. His gaze becomes piercing, seeing through every layer of her deception with an intensity that feels like a beast stalking its prey, yet remains paradoxically noble and gentle. She realizes with horror that he perceives her fear clearly, yet his desire for her remains serious and unwavering. Overcome by the pressure, she wrenches herself away, apologizing profusely as trauma from her past life, memories of judgment and isolation, floods her mind, screaming that she cannot handle this. She attempts to flee, but Felix intercepts her, wrapping his arms around her in a firm embrace from behind, trapping her against his chest. Her heart hammers against her ribs, the sound deafening as she struggles against his hold. He implores her to listen, confessing that the loud beating of his own heart is proof of her impact on him. He declares that she has made a home in his heart, stating he is truly happy that she is who she is, for she is the one who stole his eyes and captivated him completely. He acknowledges she might not understand or return his feelings yet, but he holds her close, refusing to let the moment pass unresolved even if the feelings aren't mutual right now. A complex mix of emotions swirls within her. While part of her resistance stems from a survival instinct to avoid death, she realizes there is something more profound at play. She identifies this terrifying feeling as love, but her physical and emotional strain reaches a breaking point, and she collapses into darkness. In the fading moments of consciousness, she internally berates herself, recognizing the selfishness of her own nature. Her consciousness begins to fray, Felix's voice vowing to convey his feelings regardless of her fear, just as a dark internal voice comments on the fascinating nature of her heart. He whispers that he will not force her, describing her as a contradiction, more mature than anyone yet infinitely immature, tough yet more fragile than anyone else. Seeing her limit, he retreats to the role of a loyal servant, suggesting they pretend this intensity never occurred to preserve her sanity. He advises her to take time, fearful she might break otherwise, and to enjoy her peaceful tea party as always. As darkness finally claims her vision, she hears him call her name, feeling a warm presence enveloping her as she drifts into unconsciousness, told to rest well. Light filters into her vision as she stirs, disoriented, recognizing the sterile, clutter-filled environment of her uncle's laboratory. She sits up, adjusting her glasses, momentarily hoping the previous events were merely a dream. However, the sound of her uncle's voice conversing with another presence behind the door shatters that hope. Prince Felix bursts into the room, shock registering on his face the moment he sees her sitting upright. He quickly composes himself, apologizing for his intrusion and asking if she is well enough to be awake. His expression softens into relief as he explains he was worried after hearing of her collapse, revealing that she has been unconscious for 3 full days. The news that 3 days have vanished from her memory leaves her stunned as she tries to process the lost time. Felix smiles warmly, simply glad for her safety, while Layla freezes, eyes wide behind her lenses, letting out a bizarre, unladylike sound of pure shock at the situation. The Crown Prince stands before Layla, his expression softened by a mixture of relief and contrition as he presents a wrapped gift box. He explains that this offering was originally intended for her, serving as a tangible apology for the incident with the cake on the previous day. He places the bouquet of flowers and the box on the bedside table, framing the gesture as a wish for her speedy recovery. He instructs her to consume the contents only when her health permits, his solicitude evident in his gentle demeanor. As Layla gazes at the gift, she questions the boundary between her dreams and reality, but the tangible evidence of the wrapping paper, identical to that of the shop where she first encountered His Highness, anchors the moment in truth. She stammers a confused gratitude, her mind still reeling from the implications of his visit. The prince decides to take his leave to allow her to rest, though he pauses at the doorway, his back turned but his attention lingering on her condition. He notes that while her fever has subsided, she appears disoriented, a subtle observation that betrays his sharp instincts. As the door clicks shut behind him, Layla offers a belated thanks for his concern, the words floating into the empty room. The silence is immediately broken by the sudden manifestation of Luna, the wolf spirit, who materializes with an urgent need to clarify the situation. Luna confirms Layla's suspicion. The Crown Prince was indeed present at the scene of the incident. Layla clutches her head, sensing a dissonance in her memories and noting that the wound from that time remains unhealed. Luna confesses to tampering with the timeline, revealing that she erased a specific portion of the event. She assures her master that her own memory remains innovative, clarifying that the manipulation targeted the Crown Prince's mind exclusively. This intervention was a strategic necessity, as memories residing within the future ruler's mind could destabilize the entire nation if they contained classified information regarding spirit magic. Luna details the precision of her spell, explaining that she excised only 5 crucial minutes, specifically the memory of him choosing the gift. Layla recoils at the ethical implications, questioning if such an act constitutes a serious crime. Luna justifies the erasure as a protective measure, arguing that the strain of the truth would have shattered the prince's mind. She admits the decision was selfish but necessary. The immense magical power required to interfere with human memory drained Luna, causing her to collapse, a side effect directly linked to her contract with Layla. Luna expresses remorse for acting independently, acknowledging that she underestimated the magical toll, which resulted in Layla remaining unconscious for 3 full days. The spirit wolf emphasizes that this drastic step was only possible due to the intensity of Layla's emotions at the moment, which amplified the magic. Luna warns that while this bought them time, the trauma is an obstacle Layla must eventually confront. Layla reflects on her past desires, admitting that back then, she truly wished to erase everything and pretend the trauma never occurred. She visualizes the prince's actions during the missing 5 minutes. He went to the shop alone, without guards, specifically to purchase the cookie tin for her. The realization that he has forgotten this intimate gesture brings her a paradoxical sense of relief. Luna speculates that the prince likely attributes his memory gap to mere brain fog. Layla, burdened by guilt, disparages herself for playing with another's feelings, calling herself the worst kind of woman. Luna counters this self-flagellation, advising her not to beat herself up over a situation that required survival tactics. The conversation shifts to the whereabouts of Layla's brother. Luna adopts a darker tone, recalling the brother's outrage at a man visiting Layla. Luna explains that after Layla lost consciousness, she put the brother to sleep and sent him back to their territory to ensure Layla could rest without his interference. To accomplish this, Luna reveals she temporarily possessed Layla's body. The spirit mimicry was convincing enough to fool the uncle, who sensed the magical shift but understood the situation. Luna recounts how she handled the brother by mimicking Layla's persona, though she channeled a possessive, creepy demeanor that mirrored the brother's own obsession, referring to Layla as, "my little queen." Layla shudders at the description of her brother's insanity. The narrative shifts perspective to Prince Felix, who stands outside the shop, a heavy thud echoing in his chest. For the past 3 days, he has been plagued by a sensation of loss, as if a vital part of himself has been excised. He whispers Layla's name, but the context of his emotion eludes him. He realizes this is not ordinary concern. The face of the girl keeps surfacing in his mind without cause, yet the trace of the memory attached to it is completely gone. He feels as though he found something precious and locked it in his heart, only to lose the key. He castigates himself for being shallow, believing he fell in love at first sight, unaware that his feelings are rooted in a memory he no longer possesses. Back in the present, Layla sits on a bench, observing the academy grounds. She confirms that returning to work helps distract her from her chaotic thoughts. She notes that the game's capture targets, are holding a lunch meeting nearby. Luna commends her master's dedication to returning to duty immediately after recovering. Layla explains that she cannot rest because her uncle has once again neglected his duties to Greek visitors. As she watches the nobles dining, she observes that they seem to be getting along. Applying the logic of the game she once played, she deduces that the character sitting next to the protagonist indicates the current route. Seeing Lily seated next to Prince Felix, Layla acknowledges the game's mechanics are unfolding as predicted. Layla internally wrestles with her identity, acknowledging that while her past life is technically the path she walked is etched deeply into her current self. She watches Felix and Lily, resigning herself to the role of an observer. She reasons that if Felix falls in love with someone pure and sincere like the heroine, it would ultimately be his happiness. However, as she witnesses the scene, a dark, muddy feeling swells within her chest, contradicting her logical resignation. Her introspection is interrupted by a voice addressing her as the new girl in the infirmary. She looks up to see Noel Fry, the son of a viscount. Layla instantly recognizes him as another target character from the game. She greets him formally, but her attention is captivated by his eyes. In the game's lore, red eyes are associated with demons and disaster, a distorted belief from history that led to persecution. However, seeing them up close, Layla is struck not by fear, but by their beauty. She begins to analyze them with scientific curiosity, wondering if the redness indicates a high concentration of magic power stored within the eyes themselves. Noel, accustomed to being shunned for his appearance, is taken aback by her scrutiny. He asks if she is analyzing him rather than fearing him, calling her a research nut, just like her uncle. Layla vehemently denies the comparison to her uncle but admits he is mostly correct about her analytical habit. Noel deduces that she must be the one who made the medicine he was examining earlier, realizing she was unconscious for 3 days. He begrudgingly compliments the potion, stating that while it doesn't surpass his own skills, it is not bad. He admits that he used to think no one could rival his medicine making, but he is willing to compromise with her product. Layla recognizes his attitude immediately as classic tsundere behavior. When Noel hastily clarifies that he wasn't trying to comfort her but merely stating facts, Layla giggles, which flusters him further. He stammers, demanding she stop teasing him, insisting his critique wasn't an insult. Layla smiles warmly, telling him that she knows he is kind despite his harsh tone. This moment of rapport is sliced through by the arrival of Prince Felix, who approaches them with a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Felix remarks that they seem to be getting along well, noting that he saw them talking and looking like they were having a good time. He asks Noel if they are companions, his tone laced with a possessive edge. Noel denies any such agreement. Lily, appearing beside the prince, interjects with game logic dialogue, claiming they became companions through fate and that she wants to spend more time with Noel. She asserts that when the time comes, Noel will protect them. Layla recognizes this as the game script, where Lily's innocence is supposed to heal Noel's heart. However, the reality deviates sharply. Noel coldly rejects Lily's sentiment, stating that his previous protection was solely due to an order. He tells her bluntly not to bother him otherwise. Lily is crushed by the harsh rejection, stammering that he didn't have to be so mean. Layla watches in shock, wondering how a simple conversation escalated into a situation that feels like a death flag. Noel turns to Felix and clarifies that his interaction with Layla was strictly a business discussion regarding medicine. Lily attempts to salvage the narrative by disparaging Layla, accusing her of having a connection based only on money and transactions, arguing that friendship cannot be bought. Noel, however, interprets this differently. He confirms it is a transaction, which actually puts Layla at ease. For Layla, a relationship defined by money is safer and more practical. It means she can buy high-quality ingredients rather than gathering them. She accepts Noel's offer to buy her potions at her asking price, grateful for the business. The tension diffuses as Noel shifts the topic to work. He explains that he needs a large batch of potions for the upcoming first-year battle training against beasts. He invites Layla to work on it with him and leads her toward a room. As he unlocks the door, Layla steps inside, only to freeze in her tracks. Inside the room, fully awake and working in the morning light, is her uncle. The sight of the usually lethargic man being productive shocks her completely, leaving her staring in disbelief as he greets her with a casual "good morning." Layla stood aghast before the chalkboard outlining the daily routine of Medical Officer Theodore Vivian, her eyes tracing the grueling cycle that began with researching until early morning. The schedule dictated that he would sleep within the laboratory itself, wake around noon, and only occasionally check the infirmary, a cycle that repeated endlessly. She questioned the sustainability of such a lifestyle, but Theodore remained unfazed at his desk, surrounded by equipment. The reality of the situation pressed upon them, for the infirmary and the teachers were entering a brutal period due to the first-year students' upcoming mock battles. This annual tradition notoriously resulted in a deluge of injuries, necessitating the setup of extra beds in every available room of the academy. For the next 3 days, their existence would be consumed by the relentless manufacturing and packing of medicine. Layla expressed disbelief at the volume of expected casualties, asking if only the first years were getting injured, to which she received a grim reminder about the battle maniacs, who, starved for real combat, would throw themselves into the fray with reckless abandon. Though she knew of the mock battle event from the game, the behind-the-scenes chaos was a revelation, and she was chided for being too soft. Theodore handed her an assignment sheet, delegating the commonly used healing potions to her while he undertook the creation of troublesome antidotes for status ailments. As she reviewed the daunting list, realizing Theodore had previously managed this workload alone, a knock at the door signaled the arrival of a visitor. Before Layla could attend to the guest, the Black Wolf spirit, Luna, intervened, declaring he would handle the lost visitor. Smoke swirled around the creature as he transformed, shedding his beastly form to reveal a tall, dark-haired man with intricate markings on his chest. Layla gaped in shock as Luna, now in human guise, stood before her, buttoning a white coat. He ordered Layla to return to her duties while he managed the customers, addressing Theodore as master with absolute loyalty. Layla struggled to process that a spirit had taken human form, stammering as she tried to comprehend the unbelievable sight. Luna, adopting an imperious tone, opened the door to a trembling student seeking a simple bandage. He loomed over the student, declaring that unless the injury was serious, he would treat it himself, a threat that sent the terrified student fleeing with apologies. Layla hurriedly intervened, apologizing to the fleeing student while Luna stood confused by the reaction. Just then, Prince Felix and Lord Harold entered the infirmary, questioning the chaotic scene. Luna, failing to recognize the royalty before him, gazed at them with cold indifference, stating he did not recognize their faces and dismissing them with a rude remark about coming to chat. Layla panicked, realizing Luna had just disrespected the realm's highest nobility, while Felix frowned at the insolence. Theodore stepped in to claim responsibility for his servant's behavior, though Felix noted that the previous student had been kind enough to let the rude treatment slide. Desperate to salvage the situation, Layla pulled Luna aside, instructing him to speak politely to everyone regardless of their status and to smile. Luna attempted a smile, forcing his cheeks into an expression that struck Layla with unexpected force, causing her heart to thud as she admitted to herself that he was annoyingly good-looking. The moment was interrupted when Prince Felix, having recognized Layla, called her over, grasping her arm and pulling her away from Luna. Felix announced he was borrowing her, leaving a confused Luna and Harold behind, while Layla wondered if she had done something to upset the prince. Felix dragged Layla into a private corridor, his demeanor shifting from regal composure to agitated intensity as he demanded to know the identity of the dark-haired man. He questioned their relationship, pointing out that despite her erased memories, he felt a stirring of jealousy seeing her so close to another. Layla explained that Luna was merely a servant at her house, but Felix pressed on, arguing that she seemed too close and that as a noble lady, she should maintain distance from men to avoid misunderstandings. Layla defended herself, claiming she only lowered her guard because it was Luna, which only prompted Felix to ask if that meant the man was special to her. Suddenly, footsteps approached, and Harold's voice drifted from around the corner, searching for Felix. In a panic, Felix pulled Layla into a cramped wardrobe to hide, the sudden proximity forcing them together in the darkness. Layla's glasses were knocked askew in the haste, and she trembled as she found herself pressed against the prince's chest. Felix, sensing her shaking, whispered her name, and in the confined, intimate silence, the atmosphere shifted undeniably. He leaned in, and before she could retreat, his lips met hers, stealing her first kiss in the shadows of the hiding spot. Layla froze, her mind racing as she realized the plot had deviated. This was a surprise kiss event meant for the game's heroine, yet here she was, the villainess, caught in the embrace. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs, confused by the intense gaze she felt even in the dark. Overwhelmed, she pulled away and fled the moment the coast was clear, leaving Felix alone in the room. Felix touched his lips, grappling with a storm of emotions, joy from the kiss, but also a dark, ugly jealousy toward Luna. He questioned if this chaotic mix of feelings was love, his eyes falling upon the glasses Layla had left behind in her escape. Noticing a trace of magic on the lenses, he resolved to return them to her, unwilling to let her pretend the incident never happened. Felix returned to the main infirmary room to find it still resembling a war zone of preparation. He encountered Luna, who informed him that Layla was in the back mixing potions and should not be disturbed. Maintaining his composure, Felix handed the glasses to Luna, requesting he return them to his mistress. Luna accepted the task, observing the prince with a sharp, analytical gaze, realizing that Layla was always surrounded by such complications. Luna and Felix stood together for a moment, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken understanding. Luna broke the silence, remarking that despite Layla's complicated past and proud exterior, she was actually fragile and scared, a girl who did not know how to accept kindness. He described her as possessing a stubborn heart that wouldn't easily open, creating a contradiction where she tried to reach out to others while simultaneously keeping them at a distance due to fear. Felix listened unequivocally, agreeing that she never pushed anyone away yet maintained an emotional barrier. Luna advised Felix that if he wished to win her heart, he must start by earning her trust, warning that showing too much of his male side would only cause her to run away. Felix accepted the advice with a small smile, acknowledging he was new to this emotional landscape. As he departed, he touched his chest, marveling at how his emotions were being tossed around for the first time in his life, while Luna watched him go, pondering the strange nature of this royal rival. The day of the mock battle, an event centered around the deployment of an artificial magical beast designed specifically for training purposes. Despite the creature being a fabrication intended for instruction, the atmosphere is heavy with tension, as the beast emits an intensity that suggests a level of danger far exceeding a simple practice session. Layla's mind momentarily drifts back to a recent, chaotic incident, a memory that causes her cheeks to flush with embarrassment. She recalls a moment of pure confusion where an accident led to a kiss, a physical collision she desperately tries to rationalize as a mere mishap born of the surrounding chaos. It was during that very turmoil that her uncle, the instructor, was quietly preparing the artificial beast on the sidelines. The lesson plan for the day is straightforward yet demanding. Students are expected to cast protective magic upon themselves and confront the beast head-on. To assuage fears, the device is reportedly equipped with a safety mechanism that automatically halts its movements if the trainee collapses or exhausts their mana supply. Back in the present, the instructor, Layla's uncle, displays a suspiciously relaxed demeanor regarding the day's events. He informs Layla that he will manage the medical treatment area, noting that other instructors are present to assist, and casually suggests that since Layla is merely observing, she should take charge of the training ground. Layla finds this request peculiar, noting that it is rare for her uncle to handle guests personally, which triggers her intuition that a hidden scheme lies behind his actions. He hands her a massive great sword, urging her to take it, just in case, a gesture that adds physical weight to her growing suspicion. A new figure enters the scene, immediately drawing Layla's attention. It is Yuri Orchid, the 15-year-old second prince and younger brother to Prince Felix. Layla instantly recognizes him as the fourth capture target from the game world she remembers, realizing with a start that she has now encountered every single romantic interest from her previous life. Yuri serves as Lady Lily's guard under the Academy's supervision, despite not being officially enrolled until the following year. He approaches Layla with a practiced, flirtatious charm, commenting that her glasses are a waste of her natural beauty, judging by her bone structure. Layla, however, sees past the charm, analyzing him as a skilled informant who utilizes his friendly nature and unique connections to gather intelligence. She notes his big brother complex, understanding that his presence here is likely motivated by a desire to scout the location where his brother will eventually shine. Yuri confirms this suspicion, admitting he swept the area to ensure there were no suspicious individuals or blind spots, declaring the security airtight. He assures the group that physically sneaking in is impossible and that large-scale magic would trigger mana detection alarms, meaning they can focus entirely on the battle. The focus shifts to Lady Lily, who trembles visibly at the prospect of violence. Lily protests the training, exclaiming that she does not wish to hurt others and is terrified of the conflict. Layla observes this reaction with a critical eye, recognizing it as a scripted event where the character typically overcomes fear to grow closer to the male leads. Lily's hesitation halts the class's progress, as she argues that her light-type mana makes her unsuited for fighting and that she despises conflict. The stall in the lesson prompts Layla to step forward, deciding that the deadlock must be broken. Layla addresses the students with cold pragmatism, asserting that anyone involved in the world of magic cannot avoid combat. She challenges the idea that support roles are exempt from danger, stating that in real combat, everyone is a target. Lily counters this worldview, insisting that she has many people to protect her and that she chooses to trust in others rather than learn to fight. Layla retorts sharply, warning that such naive ignorance endangers lives. She delivers a brutal ultimatum: if Lily dies, her preferences and trust cease to matter entirely. This harsh declaration causes Lily to burst into tears, cementing Layla's image as the villainess in the eyes of the whispering crowd. Seizing the moment of high drama, the instructor intervenes, not to scold Layla, but to spring his trap. He asks Layla to perform the demonstration herself, capitalizing on the awkward atmosphere she created. He justifies this by noting she is qualified for graduation and possesses the necessary practical skills, making her the perfect candidate to show the scared first years how it is done. Layla realizes she has been outmaneuvered. Her uncle utilized the tension to force her into the ring. Reluctantly, she agrees to the demonstration, despite internally screaming that she has no confidence in performing publicly and fearing embarrassment. Layla steps onto the training ground, resigning herself to the task. She grips the heavy greatsword, preparing for a battle style centered on survival rather than elegant spellcasting. She activates her magic, not to attack, but to enhance her physical abilities, boosting her muscle strength and jumping power to allow for high-speed aerial movement. She reflects that this magic was originally learned for the mundane purpose of gathering materials, but now she must use it to fight. The artificial beast activates, lunging with a ferocity that shocks Layla. Its speed and power are far superior to the model she faced during her practical exam, snapping its massive jaws with lethal intent. On the sidelines, the teachers and Yuri watch with sudden alarm, realizing a critical error. No protection spell was cast on Layla before the beast attacked. The beast is not restrained by the safety limits they assumed were in place. Layla barely dodges a crushing bite, the wind of the attack rushing past her. Realizing she is fighting without a barrier against a lethal opponent, she understands she must cast the protection spell herself mid-combat. As she parries the monster's assault, her internal monologue fills with rage, vowing that if she survives, she will absolutely strangle her uncle for this negligence. Pristine white coat that billows softly around her frame, Layla Vivienne stands with smooth silver hair cascading down her back and a gentle smile that graces her lips, an appearance so ethereal that some observers whisper the moniker Silver Goddess in her wake. Despite this delicate exterior, she finds herself thrust into a situation that starkly contradicts her noble bearing, facing down a magical beast in episode 10 of the saga. The scene presents a jarring juxtaposition as a noble lady, who seemingly possesses no connection to the brutal arts of combat, now confronts a creature of violence. Layla launches herself into the air, her slender arms hoisting a massive greatsword that dwarfs her physical form, and descends upon the roaring beast with a ferocity that defies expectation. Watching from the sidelines, Harold observes the spectacle with a keen, analytical eye, noting that prior to the battle, she appeared as though she could barely drag the heavy weapon across the ground. He deduces that she must be utilizing body enhancement magic to compensate for the weight, a theory that his companion validates by praising Harold's sharp intuition. The beast swipes its massive claws, and the onlookers wince, imagining the sheer agony of sustaining a direct hit from such a monstrosity. The observers comment that most individuals would suffer emotional scarring simply from the fear the beast instills, yet Layla remains undaunted. As the battle rages, a critical detail catches the attention of the spectators. If one possesses protective magic, such a blow would result in a mere scratch, which is why combat training is deemed essential for the student body. However, confusion ripples through the crowd as they realize Layla fights with her bare body, completely eschewing the standard protective magic that would safeguard her life. Even though the magical beast is an artificial creation, its imposing presence alone possesses the power to freeze most people in their tracks. Without the safety net of magical protection, any amateur would typically succumb to panic or forfeit the match entirely, yet Layla defies this norm. She moves with an elegant fluidity, her body language screaming a high-stakes philosophy. As long as she avoids every single hit, there is no problem. The crowd watches in awe as she utilizes the shockwave generated by the beast's attacks to her own advantage, maneuvering through the chaos with precision while the beast roars in frustration. The brutality of the exchange leaves the spectators stunned. Harold, watching Layla's desperate yet graceful dance, feels a surge of excitement and declares his desire to spar with her, prompting a frantic warning from his companion not to challenge a girl so recklessly. Murmurs ripple through the audience as they analyze the fight. While some praise her incredible movements, others note that she fails to land a solid hit, merely dodging endlessly. Harold, however, discerns her true strategy. She engages in a calculated war of attrition, blinding the beast to rob it of its vision, forcing it to lash out wildly and waste its energy, steadily draining its strength until its movements slow. Once the beast's momentum falters, Layla capitalizes on her superior agility. With a swift, decisive motion, she strikes, and the beast lets out a final, guttural groan. Layla stands victorious, holding a dark, spherical object in her hand, the core of the artificial beast, marveling that her uncle even recreated such a minute detail for the simulation. Breathless and slick with sweat, she resolves to wrap up the encounter quickly. The instructor addresses the class, using Layla's performance as a prime teaching moment. He explains that her single-strike victory was not born of a lack of confidence in other methods, but rather a mastery of basics. Even simple magic enhancement, when mastered, becomes a powerful force. He reminds the students to retrieve the core after defeating a beast, confirming that the object Layla holds is indeed the proof of her conquest. The instructor elaborates that Lady Vivienne did not attack recklessly. Her small stature and the heavy sword placed her at a disadvantage, meaning any opening left during a standard attack could have been fatal. Therefore, she focused every ounce of her power into a single, decisive strike. The instructor emphasizes that one is not always in perfect physical shape, but with the correct approach, victory remains attainable. He praises the concept of flexibility and adaptation as paramount to survival, a sentiment Harold echoes with a nod of approval. Internally, Layla harbors a different truth. She wonders why they interpret her desperate flailing so positively, admitting to herself that she was merely running around to avoid making a fool of herself. Prince Yuri approaches her, and Harold offers his praise, calling her job well done, leaving Layla flushed with embarrassment at the attention. Prince Yuri commends her practical usage of magic and her intense concentration, acknowledging her genuine skill. He admits that he expected a girl to rely on long-range attacks, but she surprised him by committing fully to close-quarters combat. He labels her a strong woman, and while Layla attempts to be modest, another student insists she accept the praise, noting that even Harold was impressed, which speaks volumes. Layla realizes this explains Harold's sparkling eyes earlier, though she cannot bring herself to admit her final move was a desperate, lucky swing. Yuri ultimately brands her a true night girl, a title that leaves her flustered. Scanning the rest of the arena, Yuri observes that other students are still struggling to finish off their beasts. He turns back to Layla, noting that despite being the same age as the others, her brave fight lifted everyone's spirits, though she humbly attributes her success to luck. Yuri reminds her that this is merely practice, and his attention shifts as he notices the first year's training session commencing nearby. In the adjacent training area, Lady Noelle unleashes a terrifying display of magic that snaps and crushes her target, eliciting shocked questions about the nature of her power. The sounds of bones cracking and flesh squishing fill the air as onlookers remark that she is on a completely different level. Observers note that Lord Noel possesses both earth and wind attributes, making his magic particularly intense, leading some to speculate if Noel is using electromagnetic waves to mess with the beast's brain. The beast, driven to madness or starvation by the assault, begins to consume its own arm, a brutal sight that horrifies the spectators. Layla watches the carnage, noting the presence of another, Harold-like overthinker, analyzing the situation. The analyst theorizes that since wind fills the space, perhaps the magic can control unseen elements like light or darkness, marveling that someone could control a beast without dark magic. The discussion shifts to Prince Felix, who possesses the rare combination of opposing attributes, water and fire. Suddenly, a splash draws attention as Prince Yuri steps up to his own challenge. Yuri obliterates his target with efficiency that suggests a new record, displaying power capable of extracting a core from a real beast with minimal magic usage. His brother, Felix, praises him, declaring that Big Brother is truly the best, while others call the display totally broken and on another level entirely. Yuri vaporizes the beast in seconds, leaving nothing behind but awe. Felix remarks that his brother never slacks off and wonders if the academy has anything left to teach him, noting that Yuri never succumbs to arrogance. Yuri glances toward Layla and smiles, a gesture so radiant coming from someone of such high status that Layla feels blinded, fearing for her vision. She struggles to comprehend how he can maintain such a gentle smile after displaying such destructive power. When a friend asks what is wrong, Layla laughs nervously, reminding herself that just because His Highness is kind does not mean she can lower her guard. She vows to stay loyal, observing that the Big Brother seems to have his hands full. Yuri approaches casually, telling her she need not be so formal, and remarks that his brother seems to care for her. Caught off guard, Layla listens as Yuri casually suggests a hypothetical scenario. What if she became his older brother's fiancée? He reasons that she has no status issues and that he would welcome her into the family. Layla tries to brush it off, but Yuri insists, though Layla internally argues she is not worthy to stand next to him. A darker thought plagues her. If she became his fiancée, would she become an obstacle just like in the original game? Yuri hints at a possibility for her, but Layla's mind drifts to a somber realization. No matter how far she strays from the game's path, the world around the heroine remains unchanged. Suddenly, the focus shifts to Lady Lily, who stands before a massive, spiked beast. She declares she does not need to fight, arguing that while corrupted magic turned them into monsters, they were originally normal animals. She explains the lore. A part of their bodies turns into a core, a clump of magic, transforming them. She distinguishes between those that have existed since ancient times and ordinary animals infected by corrupted magic, noting that both share the tragedy of becoming beasts without reason. Lily finds it strange that a monster in an excited state acts so calm and posits that if purified with light magic, they might return to normal. She tells the beast she does not want to fight or hurt anyone, asking it to show its true form. However, she asserts that she also does not want to simply be protected, she wants to be herself. As she makes this declaration, a blinding light erupts, and a massive, white-winged bird spirit manifests above her, dropping feathers of light. Layla recognizes this moment immediately. Lady Lily has formed a contract with a spirit, an irregular event that confirms the story is proceeding exactly as the game dictated. Nothing has changed. Layla realizes she can see the magic because it is of the same type as hers, feeling an incredible but unsettling presence from the spirit. She admits to herself that she dislikes dealing with people in the same line of work, but questions why she can see it so clearly. Lily pleads with the spirit to save the monster. The spirit agrees to grant the wish of its contractor but warns Lily that if she vows to always carry out such kindness, she must be prepared to accept the heavy responsibility that accompanies it. A massive burst of light envelopes the arena, purifying the beast. The miasma disappears, and the lion-like creature falls into a peaceful slumber, its monstrous aggression washed away by Lady Lily's power. The episode concludes with the ominous note that the students are learning how to fight threats, promising continuation in the next volume. In a bonus manga segment titled, The Genius's Understanding Ally, Layla visits Lord Noel, who is engrossed in mixing a concoction. She apologizes for interrupting and delivers medicine, but Noel launches into a complex, jargon-filled explanation of his process, instructing her to divide the mixture into wobbly, nicely sized portions, and scoop a boom-pow stirred batch from the bottom of the pot. Layla stares blankly, realizing the instructions are nonsensical to her. She asks to review the steps, claiming she didn't think she was allowed to touch it, which Noel interprets as humility, considering making her his assistant. Layla internally notes that he speaks a weird special language, much like her uncle, and decides that if she just listens carefully, she will eventually understand. In a second bonus segment, Luna's guest reception, Harold storms into a room with the intensity of a samurai from a period drama, demanding to know why someone is there. Luna, confused by his archaic and aggressive tone, stammers as Harold asks if the visitor is injured or sick. Harold's internal monologue reveals his admiration for Layla, whom he views as a hidden gem and a potential battle-hardened warrior because she was the first to grab the monster core. He desperately wants to stop the current situation, his heart fluttering with a mix of anxiety and respect. The final bonus segment, Harold's Heart Flutter, focuses on Harold's appearance. He stands before a mirror, wondering if curling his hair would make him look more feminine, but finds the result boring despite the hair's beauty. Layla bursts in, excited because his straight hairstyle looks exactly like his character in the game. Seeing her enthusiasm, Harold decides to keep it that way, and ever since, the straight style became his signature look solely because of how much he loves his sister. Later, Prince Felix spots Harold sighing beautifully amongst a backdrop of flower illusions, wondering what happened to make him so melancholic. Harold resolves to make a small bouquet next time, leaving the observer to wonder if her brother chased Layla away again. Rumors ripple through the academy regarding a student possessing light magic who successfully formed a contract with a light spirit. While the general student body buzzes with excitement over Lady Lily, the infirmary staff finds themselves overwhelmed by the collateral damage of final combat training. Layla, exhausted from the influx of patients, finishes treating a student, noting that the waves of injured guests have finally ceased. A male student thanks her profusely, sparkles radiating from his appreciation, before departing. The infirmary supervisor dismisses the commotion, telling Layla to seek information about the light spirit elsewhere if she is curious, though Layla retorts that she has no interest in the matter. They discuss the anomaly of a dark magic user witnessing a light spirit, a phenomenon Luna explains is possible if the observer possesses sufficient skill and a compatible attribute. The supervisor notes that several dark magic teachers witnessed the mythical scene, framing the entire ordeal as a valuable lesson for the bookish Layla. Layla attempts to leave, but the supervisor presses on, claiming this is merely parental desire for her to gain life experience. Luna, in her small wolf form, interjects with doubt, while the supervisor insists that believing things will go one's way is a grave mistake. Layla accuses the supervisor, whom she calls uncle, of simply avoiding the troublesome work, prompting a command for Luna to scold him. Declaring her intent to step outside for fresh air, Layla ignores the supervisor's protests and his taunts about her stewing in frustration over the unknown. She firmly states she will not discuss the light spirit further as she exits. Alone on a garden bench, Layla laments her lack of a mana recovery potion, the bitter taste of which she despises. She reflects on the physical toll of using healing magic continuously for the first time. Her solitude breaks when Prince Yuri approaches, asking permission to sit beside her. Layla grants it, flustered. He observes her fatigue, empathizing with the weariness of the day's events. Layla regrets leaving Luna behind, but Yuri offers praise for her hard work. When she questions if he needs something, he admits he simply wanted to see her and had been actively searching for her. Layla vehemently denies his presence being a bother. Noticing her flustered state during the earlier combat training, Yuri inquires if it is acceptable for him to be absent from Lady Lily's side. Layla internally acknowledges that he likely knows the answer but asks anyway, unable to voice her true thought that his presence is indeed a bother. Yuri explains that Lily is well guarded, her importance amplified by her new spirit contract, and that public opinion dictates someone should remain by her side to quell her anxiety. He admits with a weary expression that the situation feels heavy, as if his own desires are irrelevant. Layla recalls seeing Lily cling to him, pleading not to be left behind. Yuri contrasts the game's romantic narrative, where love interests whisper sweet words to the heroine, with the businesslike reality of their current situation. He asks Layla if she perceives him as cold. She denies this, stating he does not need to be overprotective. He validates her judgment, noting that since they are not engaged, her objective view is correct. Layla thanks him for the honest opinion, though she feels unqualified to give one. Yuri insists she has done nothing wrong and expresses annoyance at onlookers who label him unkind. Layla internally chastises herself for being dishonest and cowardly before such a straightforward man, feeling like a terrible person. Yuri, however, counters her self-deprecation, stating that if her actions make her unkind, the world is full of villains. He confesses that he even likes her self-deprecating side, praising her kindness. Layla, overwhelmed, categorizes herself as the worst kind of woman. Yuri shifts the topic to her physical state, noting her cold hands and poor complexion as signs of mana depletion from treating patients. He offers to share his magic with her. As he leans in, Layla panics at the proximity, stammering that she intended to drink a potion later. Yuri insists his method is easier than forcing down a bitter potion. Layla, mistaking his intent for the game's advanced technique, which requires deep physical contact like kissing, envisions a romantic silhouette and recoils in embarrassment. She begs him to stop, terrified of the method. Instead of a kiss, Yuri simply takes her hand. Layla opens her eyes, surprised. She feels his magic flowing into her through their joined hands, noting it feels distinct from dark magic. Yuri asks if the amount is sufficient. Realizing her misconception, Layla apologizes profusely for assuming he was a pervert, internally screaming at her own rudeness born of shock. Yuri laughs it off, acknowledging that most would make that assumption, and notes her improved complexion. He admits he startled her but is glad her body feels lighter. Reflecting on the interaction, Layla recalls mentioning him to someone earlier. She awkwardly assures him that Prince Yuri said nothing weird to his brother's fiancée. Yuri corrects her, requesting she call him Felix, and in turn he will call her Layla, as having two Your Highnesses is confusing. He chides her for putting herself down, reminding her of her status as a count's daughter. Layla insists on maintaining propriety as an assistant, fearing a bad example for students. Yuri mentions hearing that Count Vivienne is soon to be granted a marquis title. Yuri praises Layla's academic achievements, noting she completed correspondence courses, etiquette, history, politics, and economics with perfect scores. Layla humbly attributes this to studying desperately as a child. Yuri remarks it wouldn't be strange for someone to want her to marry into royalty. He bids her farewell, promising to bring her favorite tea next time, leaving Layla to grapple with the desire to keep things unchanged despite knowing his feelings. Following the drama, the infirmary returns to a semblance of peace, though Layla's internal turmoil remains. However, the peace is an illusion. Female students storm the infirmary, not for treatment, but to vent their jealousy regarding Lady Lily's new light magic and the attention she receives from their fiancés. They suggest the woman should disappear, piling their unresolved anger onto Layla. The popularity of Lady Lily has pushed the jealous noble ladies to the brink of explosion. Layla listens with a strained smile, accepting a cookie from Luna in human form, admitting she has no idea how to respond but hopes the venting helps them blow off steam. Luna announces more guests, but this time it is a single male figure, Lord Harold. Harold bluntly asks Layla to become his fiancée. He declares he needs a strong woman worthy to stand by his side and that after witnessing her battle, he is convinced she is a battle maiden in the making. He offers to start her training immediately. Layla, horrified, clarifies if he means the engagement or the training, to which he enthusiastically suggests, right now. Layla rejects the muscle-brained nonsense, and is relieved when he leaves, begging Luna to keep this unromantic proposal a secret from her brother. Luna notes wryly that Harold's combat training rank was nearly the lowest ranking because he refused to use magic. Before Layla can recover, Lady Vivian bursts in with a request for Layla to accompany her on a gathering mission. Vivian explains that outdoor missions require a healer, and since Theodore refuses to go, Layla's presence is essential. She praises Layla's usefulness as an assistant. Layla identifies this mission as Freshman Year's First Time Series, Part 2, a classic event from the game. She realizes that even if she avoids being seen as a student, she cannot escape the game's plotline. In the original scenario, Layla is the unlucky one attacked and knocked out while lecturing the heroine about noble conduct. The classic plot involves a group of beasts appearing during a break, which the heroine and heroes fight off. Layla wonders if the world is out to get her, noting the game's unusual harshness toward her character. The group assembles outdoors near a river. Prince Yuri is present, allowed to join as a bodyguard due to his combat and trap handling skills despite not technically being a student yet. Lily and the usual group of 20 students are also there. Layla sighs heavily, wondering if she is naturally the type to draw the short straw. Luna tries to cheer her up, promising to let Layla pet her fur later. Layla strategizes that staying away from Lady Lily should lower her chances of encountering monsters. She questions if plot armor is at work but decides to stay in the shadows, quiet and in the back, to act as a mere background character. However, a female student enthusiastically greets her, looking forward to working together, while others express excitement about being in Lily's group and potentially seeing Layla fight again. Layla, realizing she failed to stay out of the spotlight, prays to God to let her make it back safely as Luna encourages her to hang in there. In a sun-dappled clearing within the forest, a group of students gathers around an instructor who gestures toward a magical item, emphasizing the importance of memorizing its specific effects and benefits. Lily stands among them, her attention drawn to a small, seemingly ordinary pouch that possesses an extraordinary capability to miniaturize its contents through a specialized mechanism. She recalls that her uncle expanded its capacity using spatial magic, transforming it into a high-utility magical tool. Seizing the opportunity, she stuffs a tent and a sickle for cutting grass into the bag, reasoning that the abundance of valuable herbs before her serves as free materials for her work. She muses that without injured patients, she lacks work, so gathering supplies remains a logical priority. Her solitary gathering attracts the attention of Noelle, who approaches with a look of disbelief, noting that she captures bugs in addition to gathering herbs. Lily enthusiastically points out a rare larva she discovered, admitting that she appreciates his observational skills. Noelle, perhaps misunderstanding the atmosphere, mentions sparring, but Lily dismisses the notion, doubting that Lady Layla would entertain such physical combat. Instead, she pivots the conversation to the larva, suggesting that if he tolerates insects, he should assist her with its dissection, noting that he appears adept at such tasks. Lily perceives the scene through the lens of a game scenario, wondering if this interaction signals a love triangle or a fight-over-me moment, yet she feels a distinct lack of excitement. She offers the large specimen to Noelle, explaining that its size could yield a dozen doses of medicine, urging him to take it if he wishes. Noelle accepts the invitation to view the results post-dissection, though he hesitates at the sheer size of the creature. Suddenly, Felix interrupts the pair, noting Lily's unusual happiness and inquiring about her conversation with Noelle. Lily bluntly explains that Noelle helped her catch a rare larva and invited her to dissect bugs, a statement that causes Felix to pause and question the propriety of their topic. He dismisses Noelle, who bids farewell to the precious specimen, and turns his attention to Lily, remarking on the unexpected compatibility between her and Noelle. However, his tone shifts as he reminds her that despite her interests, she remains a noble lady, and being alone with another man reflects poorly on her standing. The conversation deepens as Felix probes Lily about her marriage plans, to which she responds that she intends to remain single unless forced, preferring a life dedicated to research. Felix's expression darkens imperceptibly as he entertains a violent internal vow to crush anyone who attempts to marry her off, capturing them before they can even approach. Outwardly, Lily assures him that she possesses the proper education of a noble and stands prepared for a political marriage if necessary, though she doubts her brother would permit it. Felix, meanwhile, grapples with the fragmentation of his memories, wondering how much of Luna's erasure magic persists, as his subconscious struggles to separate Lily from the moon goddess. A new figure, Yuri, approaches the pair, but upon spotting Lily, she recoils in sheer terror, hiding behind her cloak. Lily greets her, but the girl's trembling reaction mirrors a specific situation from the original game scenario. Lily introspects, wondering if her previous bluntness caused this fear, realizing that her desperate attempts to avoid death in this world may have resulted in unintended harshness that wounded the girl's pride. Yuri stammers a denial, insisting Lily need not apologize, but the tension hangs heavy. The atmosphere shatters as an emergency alert rings out. A pack of demon wolves has been detected nearby. Felix immediately shifts into command mode, ordering the securing of an evacuation route and guiding the students to safety. Lily senses the hostile presence intensifying, realizing the wolves are closing in rapidly. She notes that the fate of being attacked seems unavoidable, a grim realization of the game's storyline asserting itself. Amidst the chaos, Felix comforts a panic-stricken Yuri, instructing her to stand on her own feet so he can move freely. He reveals that he cast concealment magic from a distance to dull the wolves' sense of smell, buying the group precious time. Lily observes the situation with analytical precision, noting that one of the beasts appears fatally wounded and deranged. She deduces that the dying beast, desperate to recover strength, will bypass them to prey upon the nearby human settlement. A conflict of action arises. Lily insists they cannot ignore the threat to the town, while Felix argues that she lacks the control to intervene and orders a retreat to the night garrison. He emphasizes that relying on uncertain power is dangerous and commands her to regroup. Lily reluctantly complies but laments her inability to hold the beasts back as she did previously. As the group moves through the forest, Lily detects a sudden spike in magical reactions and realizes the wolves are not behaving naturally. They are circling and closing the distance in a coordinated manner. She suspects a man-made trap involving a summoning circle. Unable to leave the threat unchecked, Lily stops and informs Vivian that she will stay behind to provide support, despite the shortage of hands. Alone in the forest, Lily calls upon her contracted spirit, Luna, asking the entity to serve as her legs. Luna manifests, and they strategize. To avoid riling the beasts further, they opt for a non-stimulating method of attraction. Lily decides to use an ancient, non-elemental sound magic, a song she memorized due to her love for music. Luna explains that while this magic requires little mana, it demands absolute precision in pitch and rhythm. A single mistake ensures failure. Luna encourages Lily to sing to her heart's content, vowing to crush any number of enemies that approach. Lily steels herself, acknowledging her fear but drawing strength from the dependable spirit by her side. She begins to sing, her voice initially trembling before finding its strength. The melody drifts through the trees, acting as an alluring beacon that draws the demon wolves in. The pack lunges. Lily closes her eyes, entrusting her safety entirely to Luna. The massive spirit form of the wolf intercepts the attackers with overwhelming force, shielding Lily completely from the impact. While the song keeps the wolves in a trance-like state, Luna tears through them, mocking their weakness and demanding more prey. The battle rages as Luna identifies the summoning circle beneath the beasts and destroys it, shattering the artificial trap. Simultaneously, elsewhere in the forest, a man, implied to be Noel, scribbles in a notebook while neutralizing another part of the threat, wishing his counterpart luck. Luna unleashes a final burst of magic that resembles fireworks, obliterating the remaining threats. In the quiet aftermath, Lily marvels at Luna's strength, recalling her previous rudeness in treating the powerful spirit like a pet. Luna retorts that she is not a pet, though Lily cannot help but admire her fluffiness. The wounded leader of the pack attempts a final, desperate strike, but it too is dispatched. With the immediate danger resolved, Lily prepares to regroup with the others. However, Luna notes that traces of the pack linger, though she assures Lily that if the Crown Prince is with the students, they remain safe. Lily then looks around the unfamiliar part of the forest and asks Luna for their location. Luna bluntly replies that she has no idea, reminding Lily that navigation is the master's responsibility, especially since Lily was the one who closed her eyes during the movement. In the quiet solitude of the forest night, a quill scratches against the rough texture of paper, recording a desperate plea for salvation. Layla commits her thoughts to a journal, inscribing a request for rescue should morning come, though she immediately pivots to a pragmatic reassessment of her situation. She rationalizes that spending a single night outdoors poses no significant threat, as her experience gathering herbs has accustomed her to the rigors of camping. She expresses a faint, lingering hope that someone might eventually discover her written words, a testament to her survival instinct even in isolation. Beside her, the massive form of the spirit wolf, Luna, observes the campsite, her eyes narrowing as she comments on the utility of Layla's magic. Luna notes with a hint of admiration that the sound magic Layla employed possesses the versatility to even ignite a fire, a testament to the creative application of her power. However, the spirit also points out the toll this exertion has taken, observing that Layla has once again depleted a significant amount of her magical energy. Layla acknowledges her limitations, admitting she lacks Luna's raw strength but has practiced enough minor magic to perform various tasks. She concedes that without Luna's overwhelming power, reducing the pack of magic wolves would have been an impossibility. Layla suppresses a yawn, the exhaustion of the battle settling into her bones. She laments her inability to replicate the high-level feats of the Crown Prince and reveals she surrendered all her recovery potions to the teacher, leaving her with no alchemical means to restore her reserves. She assures Luna that sleep will suffice for recovery, but the spirit offers a more visceral solution, suggesting that drinking her blood would expedite the restoration of Layla's magic. Layla declines the macabre offer, finding comfort simply in Luna's presence, which transforms a dangerous night in the wild into a manageable ordeal. The conversation shifts as Luna catches Layla staring, deducing that her master harbors a deep affection for her fur. The spirit playfully offers to pluck some out as a gift, a suggestion Layla rejects due to the imagined pain it would cause. Seeking an emotional outlet, Layla asks permission to vent, her stoic facade cracking slightly under the weight of the silence. She confesses to feeling crushed by a profound sense of loneliness, a sensation devoid of a specific trigger but overwhelming nonetheless. Without her family, she feels utterly untethered, perceiving herself as a mere passerby in the lives of others, a solitary figure observing warmth she cannot access. Layla reflects on the kindness she receives in the infirmary, interpreting it through a lens of self-deprecation. She views herself as a troublesome burden. She acknowledges that her isolation is a self-imposed exile, a conscious choice to live avoiding others to escape the tragic fate outlined in the game's scenario. She compares her current state to the alienation of being the odd one out during classroom pairings, a dull ache she usually tolerates but which now, in the stillness of the forest, sharpens into acute loneliness. Luna attempts to rationalize Layla's fear, recalling the Moonflower incident and questioning if the darkness itself is the source of her distress. She points out the irony of a dark magic user fearing the dark, but Layla clarifies that the physical absence of light does not frighten her. It is the darkness of loneliness that terrifies her, a void she faces even as she vocalizes her fears. Luna listens, remarking on the repetitive nature of this confession and calling Layla's soul strange, yet she offers a solution tailored to her master's need for comfort. In a swirl of magical energy, Luna shifts her form, adopting the guise of a young man with dark hair and a fur-lined coat. She instructs Layla to envision this form as an older brother, offering her physical closeness as a balm for her isolation. This transformation triggers a memory for Layla of the time Luna resided within her body, though the spirit quickly dismisses the comparison, preferring not to be associated with that particular sibling dynamic. Layla defends her actual brother, praising his hidden capabilities and the respect she holds for him, impressed that he manages the estate and his heir duties with such competence. Luna notes Layla's defensive fondness, realizing that despite the spirit's aversion, Layla holds her brother in high regard. The campsite transforms in Layla's mind, the rugged reality overlaid with a memory of luxury. She recalls a tent so elaborate it felt like a royal excursion, a stark contrast to their current austerity. She reminisces about gathering herbs with her brother, a shared activity that defined her life at home. Her thoughts drift to his future, and she worries aloud about his marital prospects, though Luna affirms his handsomeness and popularity. This train of thought leads Layla to analyze the other male figures in her orbit through a detached, analytical lens. She categorizes Lord Noel as a misanthropic researcher and Lord Harold as a work-obsessed musclehead. She ponders the fate of these love interests if they fail to pair with the heroine, Lady Lily, noting that Lord Yuri has already pledged his loyalty to Felix. Layla reiterates that her brother remains her top priority, a sentiment rooted in the game's original narrative where his failure to marry led to Layla's death. She assesses Felix, the Crown Prince, as the most level-headed of the group, surmising that he would treat a fiancé well even in the absence of love. However, the prospect of engaging with them in a manner that mirrors the game's plot terrifies her, As it beckons the death route she is desperate to avoid. Luna, maintaining her human disguise, compliments Layla's maturity but challenges her logic, asking if accepting the Crown Prince's proposal might not yield happiness. Layla counters with pragmatism, stating she is prepared for a political marriage if necessary but feels unready for romance. She expresses faith that her father and brother would handle any fallout, suggesting that a contractual alliance between families offers a security that volatile emotions like love cannot provide. Luna observes that she did not expect Layla to be open to marriage at all, deducing that Layla's extreme distrust of people renders the identity of her partner irrelevant. The spirit pierces through Layla's defenses, identifying her core fear, the terror of being the only one left behind. Luna finds a twisted contradiction in Layla's hatred of people coexisting with her capacity for loneliness, admitting she enjoys this complexity in her master. Layla justifies her stance by emphasizing the utility of her magic. She explains that dark magic, sharing the healing properties of light magic, allows her to function as a healthcare worker, a role that guarantees her livelihood regardless of marital status. She asserts that her ability to go anywhere and make a living makes her possession of dark magic a stroke of luck. Ultimately, she declares that survival is her only victory condition, and as long as Luna remains by her side, that is sufficient. Luna, however, dismantles this defense. She assures Layla that spirits never lie to their contractors and challenges the notion that Layla is truly alone. Layla admits she understands that her loneliness is a construct of her own distrust. As this realization settles, a voice cuts through the darkness. Felix stands at the edge of the clearing, his eyes fixing on the scene before him. He asks if Layla is alone, his gaze hardening as it lands on the man, Luna in disguise, holding her. The Crown Prince demands to know why the stranger is there and orders him to step away from Layla. Layla stammers a greeting, but Felix moves with decisive speed, pulling her away from Luna's grasp. She stumbles, and Felix immediately apologizes for the roughness of his action, asking if she is hurt. Layla denies any injury, but her mind races, interpreting the scene as a classic love triangle trope from the game. Felix attempts to de-escalate, insisting there is no need for defensiveness, but his actions betray his agitation. Luna, still in male form, confronts him, remarking that pulling an unmarried woman close and holding her shoulders is inappropriate. Felix retorts that it is rare to see the stranger so angry, while Luna telepathically instructs Layla to handle the situation. Seizing the opportunity to diffuse the tension, Luna announces she will investigate abnormalities in the area and departs, leaving Layla and Felix alone. In the quiet aftermath, Felix confirms that the rest of the group met up without issues, implying the students reached the town safely. Layla assures him she is fine, explaining Luna's role as a loyal servant akin to family. Felix expresses relief at her safety, and they settle by the fire. Layla apologizes for causing trouble, explaining she got lost in the unfamiliar terrain until darkness fell. Felix dismisses her apology, insisting she caused no trouble and admitting he acted out of worry. Suddenly, Felix pulls Layla into an embrace, burying his face in her shoulder. He apologizes for his behavior after blaming the stranger, but defiantly states he does not regret his actions. Layla notes internally that he is doubling down on his boldness. He takes her hands, noting they are colder than before, and offers to share more magic to warm her. Layla thanks him for saving them and inquires about the battle. Felix recounts that while the teacher destroyed the summoning circle, Layla acted as a decoy. The plan involved Harold, Yuri, and Felix using offensive magic, but the wolves attacked mercilessly. He describes how the teacher and Noel reinforced the barrier until Lady Lily summoned the Spirit of Light to stop the beasts. Felix notes the impression left by the wolves turning back as if to thank Lily before returning to the forest, a sequence of events that mirrors the game scenario perfectly. Layla feels a wave of resignation, realizing that despite her efforts, she merely played the role of a nagging noblewoman while the heroine displayed the strength to uphold her ideals. She concludes that her combat advice was unnecessary and that fate seems determined to follow the script regardless of her resistance. However, she acknowledges a small deviation. She did not end up unconscious or carried away as the plot dictated. She wonders if she managed to prevent Lily's injury, finding a sliver of agency in that possibility. Her internal monologue turns dark as she struggles with her feelings. She feels tainted and filthy, battling self-loathing. She asks Felix why he is there, accusing him internally of selfishness and dishonesty for pursuing her despite her repeated rejections. She feels the weight of her own hope, a dangerous emotion she tries to suppress. Felix answers her unspoken question, claiming he came back because he forgot something. Layla questions her own emotional state, her heart pounding. She asks if he found it, and he confirms he did. From his pocket, he produces the letter she wrote, the plea for rescue she penned in her journal. He holds it out, and Layla realizes the simple word game he is playing. He tells her, "You are the one I love," his confession hanging in the air alongside his gratitude. Luna returns to the clearing, having reverted to her human disguise, and observes the scene. She comments that it is not strange for someone retracing their steps to run into a lost person, noting they are all headed to the same place. She suggests heading to the knight's outpost once light breaks. However, Luna notices magical traces on the letter, a reverse tracking spell. She realizes Felix was using magic to hunt Layla down specifically. Before she can expose the extent of his magical tracking, Felix silences her with a sharp look, and Luna stops mid-sentence. Layla, oblivious to the magical subterfuge but overwhelmed by the emotional weight of the moment, clutches her chest. The pain is intense, a physical manifestation of her conflicted heart. She is left paralyzed by the sensation, unsure of what to do as the boundaries between the game's script and her reality blur irrevocably.